Chapter 7. The Mines. Curdie went home whistling. He resolved to say nothing about the princess for fear of getting the nurse in trouble, for while he enjoyed teasing her for her absurdity, he was careful not to do her any actual harm. He saw no more goblins, and was soon fast asleep in his bed. He woke in the middle of the night, and thought he heard a curious noise. He sat up and listened, then got up and opened the door very quietly and went out. When he peeped around the corner, he saw under his very own window a group of stumpy creatures whom he had once recognised by their shape. Hardly, however, had he begun his 1, 2, 3, when they broke asunder and scurried away, and were out of sight. He returned laughing, got into bed again, and was fast asleep in a moment. Reflecting a little on the matter in the morning, he came to the conclusion that, as nothing of the kind had ever happened before, they must be annoyed with him for having interfered to protect the princess. By the time he was dressed, however, he was thinking of something quite different, for he did not value the enmity of the goblins in the least. As soon as they had had breakfast, he set off with his father for the mines. They entered the hill by the natural opening, which by the huge rock, where a little stream rushed out. They followed its course for a few yards, then the passage took a turn and sloped steeply into the heart of the mountain, with many angles and windings and branching off. Sometimes there were steps when they came upon a natural gulf. It led deep into the heart of the hill, and then they arrived presently at the place where they were digging out the precious ore. This was of various kinds, for the mountain was very rich in the better sort of metals. With flint and steel and tinderbox, they lit their lamps, fixed them to their heads, and were soon hard at work with their pickaxes and shovels and hammers. Father and son were at work near each other, but not in the same gang. The passages out of which they dug the ore, they are called gangs. For the lode, or the vein of ore, was small, and a miner might have to dig alone in a passage no bigger than gave him just enough room to work, sometimes in a very uncomfortable, cramped position. If they stopped for a moment, they could hear all around them, some nearer, some farther off, the sounds of their companions burrowing away in all directions inside the great mountain, some boring holes in rocks to blow it up with gunpowder, others shoveling broken ore into baskets to be carried away to the mouth of the mine, others hitting away with their pickaxes. Sometimes, if a mine were in a very lonely part, he would hear only the tap, tap, tapping, no louder than that of a woodpecker, for the sound would come a great distance off the solid mountain rock. The work was hard at best, for it was very warm underground, but it was not particularly unpleasant, and some of the miners, when they wanted to earn a little bit of extra money for some particular purpose, would stop behind the rest and work all night. But you could not tell night from day down there, except for the feeling of tired and sleepy. No light from the sun came down to these gloomy regions. Some, who had remained behind during the night, when they were almost certain none of their companions were at work, would declare the next morning that they had heard, every time they halted to take breath, the tap-tapping all about them, as if the mountain were full of miners, as ever it was during the day. And some in consequence would never stay behind at night, for they all knew that those were the sounds of the goblins. Indeed, a great number of the miners were afraid of the goblins, for there were strange stories well known among them of the treatment some had received from the goblins when they had been surprised during their work at night. The more courageous of them, however, amongst them Peter Peterson and Curdie, who took after his father in this, had stayed behind in the mines all night again and again, and although they had several times encountered a few stray goblins, they had never yet failed in driving them away. As I have indicated already, the chief defence against the goblins was verse, for they hated verse of any kind, and some kinds they could not endure at all. I suspect they could not make any themselves, and this was why they disliked it so much. At all event, those who were most afraid were those who could neither make up a verse for themselves nor remember a verse other people had made for them. And while those who were never afraid were also those who could make verse for themselves. For although there were certain kinds of old rhymes that were very effectual, yet it was well known that a new rhyme, if of the right sort, was even more distasteful to them, and therefore more effectual in putting them to flight. Perhaps my readers will wonder what the goblins could have been about, working all night long, seeing as they never came up with the ore and sold it. But when I have informed them concerning what Curdie learned the next night, they will soon be able to understand. For Curdie had determined, if his father would permit it, that he would remain alone that night, for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to get some extra wages that he might buy his mother a very warm red petticoat. She had begun to complain of the cold mountain air sooner than usual this autumn. And the second, he had just the faint hope of finding out what the goblins were about under his window the night before. When he told his father, he had no objection, for he had a great confidence in the boy's courage and resources. "I'm sorry I can't stay with you," said Peter, "but I wanted to go and pay a visit to the parson early this evening, and besides, I've had a bit of a headache all day." "I'm sorry for that, father," said Curdie. "Oh, it's not much. You'll sure be able to take care of yourself, won't you?" "Yes, father, I will. I'll keep a sharp lookout, I promise you." Curdie was the only one who remained in the mine that night. About 6 o'clock, the rest went away, everyone bidding him good night and telling him to take care of himself, for he was a great favourite with all of them. "Don't forget your rhymes," said one. No, answered Curdie. "It's no matter if he does," said another, "for he'll only go about making up new ones." "Yes, but he mightn't be able to make it fast enough," said another, "and while it's cooking in his head, they might mean to take advantage and set upon him." "I'll do my best," said Curdie. "I'm not afraid." "We all know that," they returned, and left him